Hello, so welcome to another Smelly Cat Creations video. This is part one of a three-part series of videos. This is going to be basically a comparison between Vectric CAD/CAM software and the Carveco Maker Plus software. So what you're going to see in this first one is going to be, I'm going to make the same part using the same drawing or the same bitmap file, and but this one we're going to program it in the Vectric Aspire software, and then in the next one I'm going to program it in the Carveco Maker Plus software, and then in the third one what we're going to do is we are going to compare the two to see what the differences were, which one was easier, which one had what the pros and cons of both softwares, and possibly might be worth running. I'll run this one with this program, and then I could run the same with the other program. See if we get any differences in the finished part and the sort of runtime on the two parts. So we're going to start off, as I said, with the Vectric Aspire. So what it is that we're going to create is it's a little Land Rover logo, basically. You can see I've already done it over here, but we'll start again. So the first part of the Vectric is just going to be opening it up, and it's asking you to sort of tell it the information about your job you're going to be doing. So anybody who's used this software before will know the standard settings here. So we're going to do a single-sided part, and then the job size isn't critical as at this stage as such. You can modify it. I already know what the size is going to be, so here you've got your units. Some people are going to work in inches. I always work in metric millimeters, so I know that I want my job sort of board size to be 100 by 60, and the actual finished part I'm going to be going for is I've been asked for it's going to be inch, so it's 25.4. We'll just put 26 in. We'll just put 25 in. I don't like 26. I'm not actually probably going to go all the way through anyway. I'll go most of the way, then I'll just bandsaw it and trim router it. So we've got 100mm wide, 60mm tall, 25mm thick. Then it asks us where we're going to set the Z position for this job. So most people, including myself, most of the time will always set it from the material surface. So this will be on the top of your job, on the top of your wood. You can work backwards, and sometimes it is actually more accurate. Sometimes, especially in sort of engineering machining, I would quite often work from the machine bed or the top of the slips in my vise. So, but most of the time on this woodworking, etc., to the material surface, so the top of the wood that we're starting with. Then a very important one, which you're often going to make a lot of people make a mistake at when they first start using the software, and is you need to make sure you get your datum position where you're going to set your datum on your wood. So there's only two I use basically. It's either bottom left hand corner or it's the center. They're pretty much only two I ever generally work with. I'm either setting it off the bottom left hand corner, or if I need it to be dead center in the part in the wood, and then I might be chopping the outside off, I might go central. But on this occasion, I'm going to go bottom left corner, and then all of this bottom part here where it says modeling resolution, etc., etc. None of this is that important. It literally is just for when it's doing a 3D model. It's going to be the quality of the image and the color of the material. So click OK to that. I do have to slow myself down. I'll whiz through it so fast that you won't pick any of it up. So right, what we're going to do is what I want to do is I've got a bitmap of the image I want to use, and this software is extremely good for bitmap JPEG tracing and turning it into a vector. So we come up to File, Import, Bitmap. It will take us to our Land Rover logo. We open that. There we go. So this is our bitmap image. Now it's now been brought in to the software. because you can see it and it's highly visible, it means it's selected and you can see the pink square on the outside. Then what we do is we come over here to the side and we can see a little bird icon. Looks like a little bird. Trace bitmap. So click trace bitmap. We get offered a couple of options. If you have multiple colours, like lots of colours in it, you might, and you only want, say, the red parts, you might come on to this, go colours. This is how many colours there are, so you can bring it right down to 2. You can go just the blacks, and you see it highlights the bit that it's going to trace. Because it's basically black and white, I'm actually going to stick with using the black and white. Then we have different options. So if you look at this, this is how much colour it fades in and fades out. So you want to just play with this a little bit to get your edges looking nice and sharp, making sure you've got the detail in there. So generally, that was like 0.5. That is a good starting point to try it. I'll do all these in a minute because you can adjust these as you go along. So if you do a first straight away preview, it shows you this is you can see my vector lines going around my logo here. If there's anything you're not particularly happy with, so you zoom in, you can see people always say what's a raster and what's a vector. So looking at this, you can see this is a raster that I'm tracing and I'm creating a vector from the raster. So you can see it's a raster because it's all pixelated. It looks jumpy, jumpy, jumpy. Underneath there, it's all pixelated. That's how a raster is made up by pixels. We're now working on vectors, which work with coordinates. So can I have a look at that? I'll be happy with that. There's a few bits I don't, I'd like that corner to be a bit sharper, but I might come back in afterwards and adjust the nodes, the individual corner points. But other options you've got are so we've got it fairly loose, as it's called at the minute. So that means that it'll be a bit more sort of rounded. If you bring it all the way up to tight and then preview it, you can see that's actually sharpened up my corners. So if we take it down to loose, it's going to be really rounded. If it was very pixelated, you'd get very rounded vectors. On this logo, tight works quite well. It gives you it'll keep it more sort of straight lines, more pointy corners. Then you get this next one, which is noise filter. Noise filter basically is with raster images, as I say, they're made up of blocks, squares. There you go. You can see them again there. If there was loose little parts of a raster image, just little squares or pixels, this is telling it, this part here where it says noise filter, this is telling it how many pixels should it take notice of. So if there was like 3 pixels sitting there and you've got it down here, so you've got 1 pixel all the way up to 10 pixels. So it won't do anything to this image because there's no loose pixels on it. But if it was a very pixelated image, it would basically telling it which ones to ignore. So pick up every single little pixel, or only pick up areas where there's at least 10 pixels together. So that's very handy when you've got quite a messy image to do away with some of the mess. And then you can have it group vectors together or not group vectors together. I have it on grouped and I normally ungroup it as soon as I start and then group it. I'll show you why. So if you group it together, it just means all those lines and vectors will be grouped as one whole part. So I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll apply that, close that. Now what you can do, I don't need that background anymore. I don't need that bitmap. So you can just click on the bitmap. So now we're just left with the vectors that we've just created. And what I'm saying by grouped is if I click on any part of this vector logo, the whole thing is pink with solid lines. Any part of it, you can't select just one part. So I know I don't want all these lines. I want to lose one of these inner lines here. So just highlight it now, and you can go. I normally do it with the keyboard, but you can. I'll have to have a look here. I normally do it with the keyboard, which is I do the keyboard shortcuts because the quicker is quicker. So it's Control and U. Control and U ungroups it, so you can see now it's broken lines, and it'll let me select a single part. Oh, it's over here. Yeah, I used to do it that way. So you would have selected all of it and then go on here, edit objects, ungroup. See group, ungroup. Um, we've ungrouped it. Now you can just edit certain parts of the logo. So I don't want this line in there, so I'm going to take that out. So I just highlight it, delete button. Control and A selects all. Control and G groups it all back together. So all group back together. I know what size I want it. I want it 100mm wide, basically almost about around 4 inches. So that is it. There's my logo. That's basically the size I want it. Now we've just got to set up how we want to machine this logo. So what we can do here, I'll just show you again. You got your tools to do the programming, the sort of tool inside of it. You're going to come over to the top right here where it says toolpaths, and you'll see it jumps out. Look, it'll jump out while you're hovering over it, and then it'll go away again. I like to have it permanently stuck out, so you can click this little pin, and it will just stay there. Right. So what I need to do is I want this inner part here, these two lines. I want to put a little pocket in there. It's going to be this is all going to be paint filled. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do with this. 1 second. Right. So actually, going back to the picture I was looking at, I want this to all be green in here. I want this to all be green around the letters inside, and I want a green ring around it as well. So to do that, I actually need to go backwards. So I'll just Control ZZ. So where I just told you I'm going to leave that, I was lying. I actually need that in there. So I have just no. There's a cat trying to. The cat is trying to get in on the video again. Hello. Yeah. Now let's carry on with this video. Right. Yeah. So sorry about that. I actually need that line in there. Otherwise it won't work. Let's put it back to size. I'll just do this quickly. Put it back to size, which is the 100. So there's the 100. There's that. There's that. Right. So let's set machining up for this. So we want these two lines out here to be a pocket. So I've just actually ungrouped it. So if we pick these two lines, hold down the shift button if you want to select multiple lines. These two lines here, and then what we do is we come over to pocket on the right hand side because I want to make that pocket. It's going to be paint filled, so I don't actually need it to be very deep. 2 millimeters will probably be fine for the depth. Because the work bee or any of my CNC machines don't have automatic tool changers, I try to cut down on using as few tools as possible. There you see on the shoulder. I try to cut down on using as few tools as possible so I don't have to keep doing tool changes. So if we set that to 2 millimeters, that's the depth we want. So start depth is 0, and then we want to cut down to 2 millimeters. Now, one major change Aspire 10 brought over 9 was you can now have lots of tools in here. It will do what it can with the 6, what it can with the 2. It'll then carry on with the 2 to take out the remainder, and then the 1 to take out the remainder where the 2 couldn't fit. You did used to sort of be able to do this in the old software, but it didn't. You can only do 2 tools at a time. So a sort of clearance tool and then a finishing tool. So I'm not going to use the 6. I'm going to remove that. And to do this pocket here. Look, I shouldn't need the 1. So I'll remove the 1 as well. So we're just going to have the 2mm cutter, 2mm deep. Just going to do that in 4 passes. I could do it in two 1mm cuts, but it's going to ramp it. So it's going to ramp in to put less strain on the cutter. It doesn't matter too much because this is in wood, but in metal with a carbide cutter, it is better to ramp in rather than to plunge, because often the cutter doesn't cut all the way to the middle. So that's fine. We click calculate. Okay, so it's actually saying that it's not wide enough, which fair enough. So if we take that out, change that to the 1 mil. Okay, so 2 mil cutter wasn't actually the pocket wasn't 2 mil wide, so it wouldn't do it. You could have cheated, and I could have just done it as a line, just to let it follow the line on the right hand side, or follow the line on the left hand side, and run it as just one line, so it's 2 mil. So once you've done that, what you can see here is you can click on preview. If we reset that, we've got this one selected. Click on preview. There you go. It shows you what it's going to do. That's what it's going to look like after it's done. So that's fine. The first pocket. Come back. Now what I want to do is machine all of this out in here, 2 mil deep as well. So to do that, easiest way is just drag and drop that. And I know I don't want any of this. So I'm holding down Shift and then selecting the lines. By holding down Shift, you can select multiple lines. And now what it's going to do is, because I've got this outer line here highlighted, anything between the lines, it's going to clear out. So we come back to pocket here. This time round, there is actually quite a lot of area that the cutters can get into. So I want to do this one with just a 1 mil because it'll be there all day. So I think what we'll do is we'll use a 3 mil. Now, Vectric is very good giving you settings for your tools off the bat. So a lot of these cutters will already be in here when you install and use your Vectric, and a lot of them will already have all the settings filled in. But you can modify them, and most of them I have put in here manually, and most of them I have changed myself. So here's my tool, a 3 mil end mill. It's that one actually is a carbide, so I use this one for metal machining. The 3.2 is actually the wooden one. This is one for wood. So it's going to do 1 mil par steps. The step over, I leave. I let that Vectric choose that. I think it's just a 2 flute cutter, the wood one. Spindle speed on the work bit, I set that manually, but on my new Exec 4 machine, this will actually get exported to the machine, and that's the speed that the machine will start the cutter up at when it starts the job. On the work B, I set that manually on the VFD for the spindle, but it's good to have the right speed in there if you do upgrade to a machine or use work B 3 that can output the speed. Then this will get output in the program to the spindle. I always have mine set in millimeters a minute, and then what we're going to go with is feed rate of 1,000 or 1 meter a minute, and a plunger of 150. We can actually probably put that up to 250. Apply that, select that, and then we're just going to come down and select calculate. These blue lines are the toolpath. This is what the tools are going to be doing. So if we take the 2 ticks out, you can see the lines match which toolpath they're doing. So the clearance one, that is the 3 mil tool. So if we run that, this is what the 3 mil tool is going to be able to get in there and clear out. And then these are the areas that it can't get into. The cutter's just too big. So then we go down to the next one, and the next one's going to be the 1 mil cutter. And the 1 mil cutter is going to leave it looking like that. Now, what you can do if you really want to bring the sharp point to the bottom of the V and the sharp points into these parts here, you can come back to your 2D, come back to here, speed it up, leave it. What you can do is you can come into V carving, we'll put 1.5. Don't really need that. Choosing a mark. wherever that is. That's the 19 by Yamaha tools. That's a good, nice, solid V cutter. What this can do is this is gonna. You can speed it up. I would normally put a box around things to speed it up, but just to show you, this would now come in and add sharp points. So if we run that, you can see it sharpened up the points in the A. Um, it's it's cleared them out a bit there to make them a bit sharper, but it can't get all the way down. Look, this is going to do it as much as it can still fit that V cutter in there. So that's what that will look like. But you do really want up points in there. So that's pretty much where we want for the machine in there. And then what I would also do is I want to machine the outside shape. So I'll click on the outside line. You don't need to do any pocket, or you can literally just click on profile toolpath. On this, it's basically follow the line. So you want to follow the line. I'm going to probably go 15 mil deep with it. And then I often use a trim router bit, or I've got that's about a 6.4 mil wood bit as well. It doesn't matter too much if you're just cutting around the outside. Then this is your option here. So you've got to make sure you get this one right. So if you're cutting on the outside and you want to climb mill it, say you want to go on the outside to the right, so that'll come on the left hand, this side of the line, and it'll cut it out. The offset will be on the outside. If you was to cut it on the inside, your offset, the tool is going to be on the inside, and you're going to cut away some of your pocket. So we've select that. We've set the tool. We've set the depth. It's going to do it in 15 passes, so 1 minute at a time. And then if we come down, we can add ramps to it again if we want, or we can zigzag it or spiral it into the wood. I'm actually just going to let this go plunge straight down into the wood. If you want to see the tool speed for that, I'll do that at, I'd probably go even higher than that, but it's 2 meters a minute. The work bee tops out at about 2.4 meters a minute. This is sort of max speed. Don't really need it, but that's 2 as well. So if we then calculate that, see all those blue lines there, click preview. See, that's what we're going to get. So there's our outside profile. That's what the finished part would look like. Then, like I say, just so I don't go through into the machine, and it's often quicker to do it this way. I'll then remove this from them, take this off the machine. I use the bandsaw to bandsaw across around here, bandsaw roughly these corners off, and then I will stick it on the router table, and I'll use a trim bit, and I'll use this edge here as with my bearing guide on, and I'll just trim off the back of it, which will give me a full depth lay. So that's roughly it for the Vector version. There's many things that you can put in there to speed it up, or you can to change the settings. You could go in, rather than putting these V's in like this, you could come in with a smaller cutter, like a 0.5 mil round cutter. Obviously, the main thing you always have to remember with a router or a milling machine is just that, generally speaking, you're always going to end up with radiuses in your corners because you're using a round cutter, and that obviously can't be avoided, really. So you can V cut, which is a very different thing, which is what I've done here, and I can show you that in another video. But where where you where you're going to come up to a point, you're all going to end up with a radius, and that radius is always obviously going to be defined by the diameter of your cutter. So that's how we've done it in Vectric. The last stage of this would be, now here's our toolpaths all on the right hand side. We would come over to these toolpaths, and depending on which machine we were sending these out to, which cutters we used, you can name these when you save them. So you come over here to where it says Save Toolpath, opens up this window. You need to that this post processor is based upon what machine that you're creating the file for. So depending on what machine you're creating the file for, depends on what post processor you want to set it as. So if this was going on the work B, we'd send this out as a Gerbil GRBL millimeters. That's what we'd save it for the work B. And what you can also do is, if all of those use the same tool, just one tool, you might want to output, not direct, you might want to select them and have them all output as one file. So there, visible toolpaths to one file. What that would obviously do, it's saying it can't do that because you're using multiple tools, and this post processor doesn't accept multiple tools. If you had all of these being using the same cutter, so let's just say that a lot was being done with a 3mm cutter, rather than saving each one of these individually and sending it over to the machine individually, you could select visible toolpaths to one file, and it would add all those G code, all G files, G codes. It would add it all into one file. So when you run that on the machine, it will do all of it in one hit. But that only works on a mat if it's using the same tools. But you could still do that, for instance, where I've done this pocket of a 1mm, and then this one, wasn't it? This was a 1mm. You could select that, output it to one file, 1mm cutter, 1mm cutter, in that one, and then it'll do that one. It'll run them together. That's it's an option to speed things up. Otherwise, you're going to click on that line. Let's put it to this one. Otherwise, you're going to click on the line and you're going to save it. It's going to come up asking you where you want to save it to. You can name it name it whatever you want. I like to have the name. So I like to put the name at the size of the cutter at the end. So if we just pull something, and then I'd put 1mm, just so I know that it's a 1mm cutter. That's pretty much how I do all of mine. So the next one I'd come down, it's a 3.2mm cutter. I would just come down, call it sign, whatever I want to call it, 3.2mm, or you can't points. So 2mm, whatever. I like to tell it what cutter it's going to be using for that operation. So you just save all of these and click on these if they're different tools, save them all into the same folder, and then what we'll do is we'll go from that folder, we'll send them across to the workbeat, and we can run them in the order we've programmed them in, or that we want to run them in. And yep. So sorry if that was a bit confusing. I tried to go through that best I can. What we'll do is we'll go on the next video. I will show you how to do it with Carveco Maker Plus. I'm not as good with Carve Maker Plus. Most of my experience has all been in Vectric, and I do love Vectric. I think it's an amazing piece of software. It has some faults that I probably, coming from an engineering metal machining background, it is more suited to wood, this program. So when I do sort of brass machining, not perfect at that, but it's got better as the versions have gone on, and I'm a lot quicker with Vectric than I am with Carveco. Carveco in general does look visually a lot more modern. This is quite an old, I think it's quite an old looking program, but it's extreme. Vectric, I can't fault it really. I'd always tell people that it's well worth the money. It is an amazing piece of software. I mean, if I wasn't showing you this, if I wasn't explaining it, I could have hammered through that and programmed that in no time. In fact, when you have to explain it, it's actually you make more mistakes and you're a lot slower at it, because generally I don't really think about it when I'm doing it. I just get on with it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see some more videos of like programming, etc., please do let me know in the comments. This is the end of part 1, and so the next one we're going to do will with Carveco, and then at the end, the third part will be the comparison video to say what was better and what was worse in each piece of software. I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch my videos. And please like, share, and subscribe to the videos if you've enjoyed them. It really does help. I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel, so the more likes and shares, the better. Please do check out my website, smellycatcreations.com. You'll find a link to my shop on there. And if you want anything custom making, then just get in touch and I'll be happy to quote for it. Thanks again for watching.